On everything I'm ballin', no, I'm shooting to win. And if my angles ain't right, then we shooting again. I got the contracts and they ready, so don't get cute with the pen. Cause once there's an agreement, then the magic begins. I had to put it all in the craft. I had to study and work and get better. I made mistakes, but I'm never gonna let up. Cause I be the one on the rise, like I'm lifting my head up. The last one leaving the shoot. And believe I'm the one that got everything set up. The lights, the camera, the action. That ain't gonna happen unless you invest and you get it. You get it? We did it, but we never did it for credit. We were pursuing perfection with edits and layers and filters and all the peripherals, chasing the dream of a life with residuals. We wanted nothing to do with the typical. Lo and behold, you see we at the pinnacle. Nothing could stop us to rise. Now we on the rise. Rise, rise, 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 rise. Now we on the rise.
The bros back.
We back.
Howie, you ready for some composites?
I know you is.
Cap, you ready to teach them about some action?
It's time to parlay again.
You know I'm ready. All green screen on this side, hustling.
Stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready, huh?
Rise and grind, rise and grind. This July, it's that time, it's that time. So get your tickets now and get in line. And we gon' show you how to rise one more time. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Kendrick Brown with the RISEworkshops. Welcome to the live interview. We appreciate your participation. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and look at the link, and above you'll see there's a permission link for you to give StreamYard permission for us to see your name and your face when you make a comment, and we'll go ahead and share those comments across the screen and answer as many questions as we can. Today, we have Zamani Feelings out of Philadelphia, PA is going to be joining us, and we appreciate him taking time out of his busy schedule to spend some time with us and answer some questions and talk about what he's done to get to where he is and maybe where he's going in the future. If you look up in the corner, I'm not going to point to which corner. I think it's this corner right here. You're going to see a QR code. You go ahead and scan that. If you're not a member, if you're watching on YouTube and you're not a member of our private Facebook group, go ahead and scan that link and request permission for an ad. If you're a photographer and you at least have a website, we'll go ahead and get you in the group. We currently have 415 people in our private RISEworkshops group. So go ahead and scan that, and we hope to see you in the Facebook group. And with that said, we're going to move on to our workshop. You see it scrolling across the bottom. We've got about 2 weeks to go, 2 weeks and a couple of days. July 15th to the 17th, we'll be in Orlando, Florida. That's myself, Howie, and Kane. 3 ways to learn how to do the same thing. Howie specializes in composites and his Photoshop work, and of course his shooting is off the hook as well. Kane shoots green screen. He's got great workflow with that green screen. He usually shoots one day, and by the next day or the following morning, he has those images up and he's ready to move on to the next shoot. Myself, I'm a natural shooter. I shoot also sports action. Sports action is where I started, and that led into team and individual. And I'm probably about 50-50 or 60-40. That's TNI to action now, but that action is what got me to the TNI, and that's what I'll be teaching at RISEworkshops. So we look forward to seeing those of you that are coming. And we've got folks coming from Greenville, South Carolina, Berwick, Louisiana, Tampa, Florida, Grovetown, Georgia, and Puerto Rico. Got a couple of folks coming from Puerto Rico. I don't know if they're in Florida on vacation, etc., but they will be there. So we're looking forward to meeting you all. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and get you with Zamani's intro video, and then we'll go ahead and bring him in. Here we go.
My name is Zamani Feelings. I'm a professional photographer and educator.
There's Zamani Feelings, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring him in to the broadcast. Boom, Zamani, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's great to be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time. We know all of us are busy this time of year, and we appreciate you taking that time out to spend with us. I'll give a little bit of a history here. Zamani Feelings is out of Philadelphia, PA. His sports website is Zamani Feelings, that's with an S.net. That gets you to his sports. If you go to .com, you're going to get to his other stuff, his weddings, portraits, and other parts of his business. Zamani is a one-man show, so he's not out there like we are doing volume with hundreds of kids and multiple lighting setups and possibly 2 setups in the same day. He's a Canon shooter. Shout out to Canon. Yeah. He does have his mirrorless as well. He's got that R6. Yeah. I've got the R6. We've talked about that many times. And he started shooting in 2012 and started building his portfolio. And he just fell in love with the sports aspect of it. And in 2015, he started shooting for Temple University, and he still shoots for them now. He's got a lot of his stuff you can look at on his website, ZamaniFeelings.net, his sports site, and you can see a lot of his work from various games. And with that said, he also shoots some in the NFL. He follows his Temple Owl players to the NFL, and he covers them and how they're doing in the NFL to help with recruiting as well at the university, which is a great idea and good for him too, because he's another revenue stream. And his mentors were Dieter Carson when he was doing weddings. Well, he still does weddings now. And Peter Reed Miller with regard to sports. There's others that I'll let him go ahead and talk about himself. So with that said, Zamani, you fill him in on the blanks that I left out. Go for it.
Okay. Well, where should I start?
Wherever you want.
Okay. Well, with just in terms of photography in general, I had a slight interest in photography when I was younger. I played around with my mother's film camera a little bit. I ended up buying my own lens at one point. She was actually going to school to get her master's degree at Temple University. And during that time, she was coming to my football games, which I played for the Little League team, but we played at Temple Stadium. And she was coming to take pictures of me playing football at Temple Stadium as a photographer major. I mean, she wasn't a major, but it was a class she was taking when she was getting her master's. So Temple and the football and photography all got mixed up together a little bit when I was younger. But I didn't really get deeply into photography until much later. When I got out of high school, that was the first major I chose, but I ended up dropping it after like a week or 2 or whatever. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and didn't come back to photography until 2010. And I originally was interested in doing documentary film, and I bought the camera, Rebel T2i, to do documentary film. That was what I was interested in. I was going to buy a video camera, but I was watching some videos, and I saw a video of a guy, and he was just filming his friend cleaning his car, but the backgrounds were blurry, and it had this cinematic sort of look. And I was like, how did he get the backgrounds like that? And someone said, oh, you need a DSLR to do that. So I said, okay, I'll get a DSLR, and I got a T2i. I went out with a group that I thought was a videography group, and they ended up being a photography group. And it's called Operation Give Back, and they went around Philadelphia taking pictures. And it was just like a kind of mutual support photography group. Right. And so I went out with them, and I was still doing video of them, and then I did take a few pictures, and the teacher, his name is KD. He said, hey, those are pretty good photos. You might want to think about photography. And I was like, I want to take photography. And he said, well, at least learn how to do it so you can do some pictures for your films that insert in. And so long story short, I ended up getting engrossed in the photography. I started out just going out and taking pictures of anybody I could take just pictures. I just kind of became obsessed with portrait photography. And I started sharing them on Facebook and that sort of thing. That led to eventually people started to pay me, and I started doing weddings and portraits and everything like that. But from the start, I did have an interest in capturing action, but I just never pursued it in terms of sports photography. But I always, when I would do children's pictures or family shoots, I would always have the kids jump or run towards me, and I would like to capture that picture in action, and they would be fascinated by it. But for whatever reason, I guess I was just still learning the fundamentals of portraiture and everything. I didn't start trying to really photograph sports with any real intention until about 2013, 2014.
Okay.
In 2014, that's when I got serious about it. In 2013, I did get to shoot one Temple football game. 2014, I got to do 2 games, and that's when I started going to the high schools, Penn Charter School. I started going there in Central High School and just taking pictures of any sports I could take pictures of, and just trying to learn. And I purchased my 1DX in 2014, and then I ended up purchasing in 2015. I purchased a 300, and then I got a 400. 2015 Temple football game versus Penn State, where they beat Penn State. It was a big upset. And the link, Temple plays at the Eagles field, so the stadium was full, and it was so exciting. And then I think those are the times I got my best pictures that I had taken, I think, since I had started.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, this is definitely what I want to do. And that was the first day I shot with my 400 and everything. And it was like, so I was like, this is really what I want to do. So I was still supporting my sports photography business. I wasn't making any money at the time with sports photography, but I was still buying equipment, and I was using the wedding photography money to pay for
your
the lenses, and I didn't care because at that point I was just obsessed with getting those pictures that I saw like in Sports Illustrated or other sports photographers that I followed, like Damien Strohmeyer or Mark Rivales or Peter Reed Miller, and anybody else that shot sports and particularly football well. I was just after that. So the 1DX came out of wedding money, the 400 came out of wedding money, the 300 came out of wedding money, the second 1DX came out of wedding money. So I was only just shooting weddings to buy more gear to go shoot games for free at the time. But what ended up happening was when I came to the high school, I was just shooting voluntarily to build my portfolio. They saw my passion for it and to some extent my talent, and they liked the images. And so after a year or so, they actually hired me as an athletics photographer for the high school. And then the same thing eventually happened at Temple.
Okay.
And it kind of went from there.
Well, sounds good. It's funny because I can see Howie in the background, and he knows when you talk about shooting for no money, I was cringing. So we have a workshop in July 15th that I'll show you how to make money with that action photography.
Yeah, I mean, it was I feel like everything for me happened sort of organically.
Right.
And, there wasn't any parents to solicit really or anything like that. And, the Philadelphia is sort of a different region, but for me, I wasn't thinking about that. I had the money I needed from doing my other photography. I was just obsessed with the art of it, and I've always been like that. Anyway, I didn't even get into photography thinking I was going to be a business. I got into it because I wanted to take good pictures and just have people appreciate what I did and like what I was doing myself as well.
You're not alone with that. I've interviewed several people, and I've heard that before. That's not me, but that is a lot of people that are in the industry. They just want to be
right. And I respect everybody's. Some people just approach it as a business. Some people approach it it's from more of a practical point of view. For me, it was always an artistic thing,
right?
And then a business second.
Well, it definitely shows in your work, no doubt about that.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and look at some of these comments and see what we have here. Just some folks checking in. Sherry's a member of our Rise Elite. She was at Rise 1, just saying, hey. I'm not sure who this is. Facebook user, let's do this. 2 of my favorite photog buddies tonight. Cool, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Not sure who you are, but type in your name. Give StreamYard permission so we know who you are. I appreciate that. Felicia, she's out of New Jersey. Good evening, all.
Hi, Felicia.
Yeah, Jeff Chris popping in, saying hello.
How you doing, Jeff?
Who we got here? Not sure who this is. What's good, fellas? Been waiting for this all day. 2 of my favorite photogs on deck tonight. Good.
Thank you.
And who we got here? Someone giving you some props again. That brother is fire. I inboxed him a couple of years ago. Put your name in so we know who you are. He might even remember you. He does answer his inbox because he answered mine.
Thank you.
Jeff Chris again. Great seeing you, Zamani. Folks, go ahead and type in your questions. If you have questions for Zamani, hey, he's taking his time out. Go ahead and type those questions in. If you got questions about his process, his editing, equipment, access to the game's business plan, go ahead and ask.
I'm so active in the sports photography groups that people probably can answer the questions for me.
Right.
Some of them, that was one of the big parts of me growing as a photographer was participating in those groups. And not only learning, but also sharing.
Yeah. Here's Howie popping in. Let me see if I can get this.
Howie.
Boom, Howie. If there's anyone on here who isn't familiar with Zamani's work, be sure to get familiar. Beautiful action photography. Yeah, that's and early on, you almost have to shoot weddings to get that wedding money to have that super telephoto money.
Yeah, it gotta come from somewhere.
Yeah. Anthony Williams jumping in here. Anthony, look at the link to the StreamYard. It's above where you click, and just give that permission, and your name and your face will pop up. But I appreciate you, brother. Octavius, same thing. You're in here. You've been in here before, OC. You know how to do this. OC's out there in Florida. We're two of my favorite photogs. Cool. So type in your questions if you have them for Zamani. We appreciate that. And Zamani, let's talk to you about your editing process. You and I have personally talked about it and then gone over some of your process before, and your images that are posted are just outstanding, even in not the best conditions. So I'll talk a little bit about your thought process when you shoot an action image, and then your editing process on that image.
Well, when I'm shooting the images, the first thing I'm looking at is lighting, and I kind of my approach to, not all the time, but a lot of times my approach to sports photography is similar to my portrait approach.
Right.
Whereas where can I get a good portrait of this athlete in good space and good lighting, or sometimes you can't,
Right.
the lighting that you want. But I approach it kind of like that. So I realized when I was starting off doing sports photography that I wasn't really approaching it like the sport as much as I'm trying to get a good action shot and capture this person's personality or something, and they just happen to be in action. And that was kind of my approach. So I'm always trying to get myself in front of the person, trying to get the eyes, trying to get emotion from the player. And so my positioning is a lot of times based around that. But in terms of editing, it's really a case-by-case basis. I never really go in thinking I'm going to do any particular thing. When I see the shot, when I'm going through my process of culling, and I see the shot that I know is like a good one, I'll just kind of look at it. I'll play around with it. Sometimes it might not need a lot. I'm usually thinking about making sure I bring out the faces, making sure it has detail, making sure the colors pop, and those sort of things, making sure the skin tones are right, the white balance is correct. But there's no real one approach that I take to any of them. There's some techniques that I use it would be kind of it's more impactful if you see them. Right. And those are some things I'm going to do in my workshops, but it's nothing, no real rocket science or anything magical, that I do. It's just, I always wanted to have that, the emotion in the shot, a nice peak action, nice color, and like a three-dimensional sort of pop to it. So I always want that the depth of extreme shallow depth of field is possible. Right. And just as long as all of my details in the shot are in focus.
Sounds good. You mentioned culling your images. So I imagine after a game, you have several thousand photos after a college game. What do you use to do your culling?
Well, I cull during the game a lot. I'll lock my photos, and this is just what I do. I'm not telling anybody to do this, because over the years you hear people say don't delete pictures in the card because it can make the camera you'll get errors with the cards. I haven't had that problem yet in 12 years. I've never had that issue. But so a lot of times during the game, if it's a game where I can do it, I'll lock my images there. So when I go home, I don't have anything that I'm not going to use at all. I'll lock the ones that I want to keep, and then I'll hit erase card, and it erases everything except the locked one. But I'm not saying you necessarily should do that. That's just what I do. But anyway, moving beyond that, I go in, I pull my pictures into Photo Mechanic, and then I just go through, and I don't use Lightroom. I use Adobe Camera Raw to edit. So I'll go in and I'll edit each one individually. Some of them just don't need anything but maybe a little exposure adjustment. And the ones that I spend the most time on are ones that I feel like are really portfolio worthy or dynamic, And so that's it. Basically, I go through, pull it in the Photo Mechanic, open them up in Adobe Camera Raw, process them, save them as JPEG, and then go back to the next one. And it's a longer process than it might be for Lightroom or something like that, but that's basically my process.
No, I hear you on that. I've used both Lightroom and Photo Mechanic, and for the speed of initial culling, Photo Mechanic, you can't beat it. That's the industry standard.
Right.
So if you're doing
Right.
weddings or anything where you have high volume number of photos that you need to go through, Photo Mechanic, go ahead and check that out because that's
Definitely.
what they're all using.
Photo Mechanic is necessary, I feel like, for any sports photographer, no matter whether you use Lightroom or whether you use Capture One or you use Adobe Camera Raw. In terms of culling and sorting images, that's on my list of must-haves almost.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get a couple more questions in here. We got Sherry Ball Funk, one of our members of Rise. How many images do you typically shoot at a game, and what's your process for? We covered the editing part, but not the storage.
So my process during the game depends on what kind of game. If it's like a lacrosse or a soccer game, it really depends. But I would say probably in an entire game, I probably end up taking about maybe 1,000 images. Now with the R6, I probably end up taking way more than that because when I shoot with it, I use the 20 frames per second mode. So that can get really out of hand sometimes if you're shooting a lot with it. So I try to control how much I shoot with that in that mode. But generally, I'll end up with 1,000 to 2,000 images depending on one camera, and if I'm using two bodies, I'll have more than that. So I go home, I'll post-process the images. From an average football game, let's use a football game for example, I might end up only uploading about maybe 175 to 200 pictures that are actual keepers. And a lot of those, even with the if I'm shooting for Temple, like with football, I'll be going in and getting individual shots of the players and their stances, and to try to make sure I capture everybody that I can on the field. Whereas if I'm going on assignment for a high school, and they just want me to just capture the action, then I won't have as many pictures like that because I'm just going to keep the good ones, and I won't always be doing that. So, and then the last part was, in terms of storage.
Yes.
I keep everything that I shot that wasn't like a complete dud, and I just store them on external hard drives, and then I have a NAS RAID drive that I store things on, and then I put the JPEGs, I have them in the gallery in SmugMug, where I keep all of my work that I've shot in SmugMug, so that the schools and whoever I'm selling or giving the images to have access to it. And now that SmugMug allows raw files, I'm going to start uploading my game files to SmugMug too, and just the raws, and keep them there too.
Okay, that's for your Temple Owl photos.
Temple Owl
photos. High school as
well. Temple Owl photos. The high school, I doubt I'll probably do that. I might possibly start doing that too. But for the Temple Owl photos, I'll probably keep those there because a lot of times the school will go back. It could be 4 or 5 years later, and it was like, we need a picture of so and so.
Right.
He might not even be on the team anymore, or he may be on the NFL, or he may be just working. There's someone who wants to do an article on him, and they need the picture. Whereas with the high school, I haven't encountered that much at all.
Got you. Okay, we'll talk about that high school. I'm gonna show you how to monetize that for sure because you've been shooting there for a while.
With the high school, I get paid by the school. Mm-hmm. So the school pays me to do all of their sports, and I go and do all the senior pictures and get action shots of the seniors. And then we also do media day for all the sports. So I do those in studio for them. So. But as far as the parents, the school that I shoot for, that one particular one is a private school, and there's no parents at games and everything like that or anything. So, but with the other high school stuff that I shoot for Philly Sports Digest, and they send me out to take pictures of games just to get action shots at the of different games for the Catholic and the Interact League here in Philadelphia too.
Okay. And then we got another question here from Octavius. Appreciate you putting your permission in there. Do you shoot in manual or AV mode for action? And what's your process?
I started out for for years I was shooting in AV. I was shooting in aperture priority, and that worked for me pretty fine. The only caveat was that you have to make sure you control your shutter speed in case you get in a situation where your camera might choose a really low shutter speed. So in the 1DX, you can set the shutter speed for a low and high number. So I would go in and I would lock it at 1,000 just to make sure that it never fell below 1,000. And then over time, I started switching to manual. So basically in the daytime, I'll go to like 2,000 or higher in manual, and I'll always shoot wide open. So if I'm always on the 2.8 lens, so I'll shoot at 2.8, and then I'll use auto ISO and along with exposure compensation to make adjustments. And that's basically my process. So I always shoot in manual mode, but I use auto ISO often, and use the exposure compensation to make the adjustments.
Gotcha. I shoot, Zamani and I have a lot of similarities. When we were talking for the pre-interview, found out we're both 53 years old. We're both Virgos. Right. Both of our birthdays are in September.
10 days apart, yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm older than him. He's my little bro.
Right, 10 days. I mean, about 10 days.
Right. But on that tip with the manual versus AV, we shoot primarily manual. And when we're out shooting our action, we shoot AV when it's a spotty, cloudy day, when you have clouds over some portions of like baseball, clouds over the batter, and then he runs into the sun, then he runs into the shade because you got trees all over the place. Right. So we shoot an AV and let the camera do its thing in that case. But if it's a consistent day, if it's an overcast day, something like that, or you're shooting at night where everything stays the same, we're going manual. So
I meant to mention too, at nighttime, I set my ISO. I never use any kind of auto mode in nighttime. If it's in a situation, especially where I need a higher ISO, because I want to be able to manage that. And sometimes the auto modes in the cameras will choose a really higher ISO.
Correct.
Especially if it can't touch. If you already had your shutter speed stuff locked in, then it's going to go say, "Oh, I'll push the ISO way up there." So I usually lock that in somewhere, and then just make my adjustments from there.
Absolutely. We got another comment here. That was the editing process. Felicia, we answered your question from someone else. Sherry, we answered that. Steve Pearson just giving you some attaboys. He likes your stuff.
Thank you.
Jeff Chris coming across here. Who does he contact to get involved at his local college?
Well, I'm involved in several ways at the college. So at Temple University, I photograph all of the sports. So I have one person who's a communications director there, who I contact, and he lets me know what games they want me to cover. And I'll automatically doing all of women's basketball games, all the men's basketball games, all of the men's football games, and I'm traveling with the team. The other ones, they give me selected dates to shoot. And then I also do the studio photography for every team. So we do a day with each team, and I photograph all of them in the studio. So I'm usually in contact with like 7 or 8 different people, to be honest with you. Like the SIDs for each team will contact me. The SID from tennis will say, "Can you do this game on this particular day? Can you do this game on this particular day?" SID from lacrosse and so forth and so on. And then the marketing and media and imaging people will contact me about doing the studio photography. And then whoever's in charge of those particular teams will be there too. So everybody there kind of knows me, you know what I mean? But during the year, I'm usually in contact with about 10 to 12 different people. But for football, it's always either the people at the football facility or the SID. About what I'm doing there, but that's usually a no-brainer because I know I have to do every game, and I travel on the jet with the teams and everything like that. So that's a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Okay, we got another one in here from Howie. What kind of focus tracking do you use? I've never shot Canon, so I don't know if the settings are similar. He's a Nikon and he has a Sony shooter.
Okay. Well, with the 1DX, I always shoot with the center focus point, and I use AI servo. I used to use the center point with the 4 or 8 surrounding ones, but I found that they jumped off a lot too. Now in the later versions of the 1DX, I've heard that that's a lot more accurate. But with the original 1DX, I just shoot with the center point, and I keep that locked onto the player. With the R6, I feel like they all work really well, but I generally use the face tracking. But I keep that on center point where I can press that center and it goes back to the center, and I can start my tracking from there and then let it track the person all around the frame. But generally, I use in the 1DX, I use AI servo, I use case 4, I use the center focus point, and that's basically it. And I shutter focus. I don't use back button.
Oh,
I
really?
know that. Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, you don't use back button. No, I don't use back button. I use shutter focus. That's just worked for me. I've used back button before, and it's not to say that it didn't work, but I just felt more comfortable with shutter focus. I ended up going back to it. So
Wow, you might be the only one at your level that shoots shutter focus. That's interesting.
I know a few. And now with the mirrorless cameras, like it kind of eliminates the need for back button to some extent because of the real time tracking.
Right,
But
right.
but I know it's weird. Yeah.
For those of you that shoot any type of sports, if you're not familiar with back button focus, typically I like to change mine to the asterisk in the back of the camera. So I keep my thumb on that, keep it on servo, and it just locks in. It's going to follow where it follows. And in the case of take a batter, they're just going to swing. They're going to be in one spot till they take off after the hit. I just go ahead and lock that in. Once you push that back button focus, it's going to lock in on that spot. Now all you got to do is push the shutter, and once he takes off running, you're back on that back button focus to get him all the way through the run. So those of you not familiar with that term, that's what that is. And once you get used to using it and you're into it, you use it for everything. You never use anything else. Like Zamani said, it's a choice, whatever you're comfortable with, but most sports shooters are shooting that back button focus.
Right.
Let's see, we got another question in here. Here we go, Howie again. Football eyeballs aren't actually the easiest, and yes, I use shutter as well. So that's Howie's not a back button focus guy either.
Okay.
And for those of you that are watching on StreamYard, if you'll all go ahead and type in your city and state, where you're from. Let's find out who we have in here and where you're from. Watching us during this live broadcast, and we appreciate you all. And once again, I want to say appreciation to Zamani Feelings for taking the time to spend with us here. Go ahead and type in those questions. I'm looking through them. Anthony Williams, I know you're watching. You got to have some questions in there. Go ahead and fire away. Steve Peterson down there in San Diego, fire away. We got Sherry's question in there. Let's talk about your shooting at Temple. At Temple, when you shoot the photos at the beginning of the season for each sport, you mentioned in your studio, do you actually have them come to your studio, or do you go to the venue and shoot them in their environment?
No, I go to their venue, and there's a couple of spaces that I used over the years. Sometimes for in the last couple of months, I've been doing a lot of the women's basketball recruits that are coming in, and what they do, the recruit photo shoot when they come there, and they have to put on a uniform. So I was doing those over at the women's basketball venue, and then the men's basketball, I usually do them over there. But a lot of the other teams will come over to the indoor football facility, and I basically have a setup in there that I just kind of leave there set up. I just lock the stuff in the closet there, and it's like a big garage door. So they lift the garage up, and the backdrop's already there. So I just come in and I can shoot there as much as I want. And so most of the teams I photograph there.
Okay.
So and that's everybody. It's tennis, that's fencing, that's gymnastics, that's crew, rowing, wrestling, basketball, football, volleyball, the cheer and dance team.
Right.
So once learning was interesting because when I came there, I was just shooting action, and I had never done studio work much at all. Not much. Maybe I had done 4 or 5 shoots total in my whole life, and it wasn't in depth or anything like that. I was using somebody else's lighting. So the coach at one point they asked me, "Can you do studio photography?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, I can do it." And I didn't know what I was doing. And they were like, "All right, good. In a couple of weeks, we're gonna have you do the whole team." So I was like, "Okay." And so like that night, I was on YouTube every day for hours, just like trying to soak up anything I can do on lighting. And I basically got, I kind of winged it, and I learned as I went along. And it could be a long going process with studio lighting when you're trying to get better with it. But I really gained a love for it after that.
Okay.
But it was a great moneymaker because I actually make more money probably doing the studio shoots than I do from doing the action and everything there.
All right.
Because of the sheer amount of people that I have to shoot, and the amount of teams and the amount of days that I need to be there, and the hours that adding up. Because one team can take 4 hours, whereas one football game is only a couple of hours. So.
All right. At Temple, are you paid per event, or is it salary?
Paid per event.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm constantly invoicing them, week after week after week, just invoicing them. So I have a contract at the beginning of the year, and then they have a budget, so I can't just get crazy, but they have a budget for it and everything like that. But I know I go over it sometimes, but so I'm constantly invoicing all the time, and I'm on direct deposit, so it's cool if the stuff just drops in. You know what I mean? So,
Okay.
But colleges, they get paid once a month, so it's a wait time for things. So.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I go to those parents, because they don't have a budget. If they got a credit card, they're paying. So again,
right.
we'll talk about that on increasing that revenue, because it is there for sure.
Oh yeah.
So let's see if we have any other questions in here. We got here we go. Sherry's wants to know about your media days. Sherry Ball Funk, tell us about your media days and what that consists of.
So the media days, I do those for and that's media day is basically just it's basically just a photo shoot for whatever athletic team it is. So for the high school, it's just the kids coming in, they're posing. Sometimes I'll get groups of pictures of the seniors, groups of pictures of the juniors, that sort of thing. Each student gets to come in and they get pictures, depending on what sport it is. They're doing poses related to their sport, sometimes action shots. And, that can last 4 hours. When we first started off, they were doing a media day for the football team, and it would be an all-day thing, like 12 hours. I'm just shooting 12 hours, every football player, and he's doing multiple poses and action pictures and that sort of thing. And those are long. They were fun, but it's exhausting, And that's why I ended up investing in the lighting that I had, because I needed something that could last me long enough to shoot those long days and everything like that too. So, but the media days are just basically photo shoots for the team. That's all.
Okay. And then here's another Facebook user. Don't know who you are. Do you advertise, market your sports and other photography separately?
When I started off, I was told that you should separate your sports photography from your portrait and wedding photography. And at the time, I was just kind of following what the logic of the people that I respected. I don't think you necessarily have to do that. It really depends. Like at this point in my career, I could blend the two and just not be paying for two different websites. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it wouldn't be really much of a problem. I don't think people frequent my sports photography website that much. People frequent my Smug Mug more than anything, because Temple is constantly going there to pull images for stories, for graphics, social media, and that sort of thing. So if I, and one day I may just go ahead and combine the two, combine my .com and my .net and just have one website and leave it there. But some people feel like you should separate them. I feel like earlier on that was more important than now. Things have kind of changed in terms of perception, but I never really knew why people said that, other than it was something about like professional sports. People want to feel like that's all you do or something like that when they hire you and everything, but things have changed anyway now, so you know what I mean. So I don't feel like that's a definite that you need to have it. You can I feel like you can combine them and be okay.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing in different places. Ours is combined. We don't really, it's team and individual, a little bit of seniors and action, and it's all on the same website. Like you said, once you're known for whatever it is that you do, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference at that point.
No.
Just starting out maybe, but after you're already known. We've got another question here from William Anthony. I was fortunate to shoot an NFL game alongside Z back in 2019 at MetLife Stadium. He's a class act for sure.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate it. Will's been there with me from the beginning. We both I think he might have started before me or we're around the same time, but we got a chance to shoot together, and he's a really cool dude and does great work.
Yeah, he's about to retire from his job. We've been talking. He's going to transition.
Oh, that's what's up.
Photography.
Congratulations, Will. Congratulations.
So we got Howie again. Does Temple give you any better access than most media photogs? And if so, do you find that having the additional access, vantage points, locker room, halftime, speeches, etc., gives you some favorite images since they're even more unique than the usual sideline work?
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten interesting stuff at practices, the sideline access. It definitely helps. I mean, number one, being able to just cruise the sidelines and capture stuff on the sidelines that people can't get. We all know when you go to college and NFL games that it's blocked off from the 25
Right.
down. So and now I can get in the middle of the field and shoot behind the quarterback if I need to and that sort of thing. And then of course the locker room, the storytelling things. You have more freedom to do a lot of those things as well. And but there's also another element of it that's motivating for me is that I developed a camaraderie with the players from traveling with them and that sort of thing, and seeing some of them I shot from, when they were a freshman all the way through to now to the NFL, and I got to be at their first game when they got their first snap, as a running back in the NFL and things like that. So having a camaraderie, it motivates me too to get different kind of images, to get good pictures of them, because I know immediately he's going to be like, oh wow, as opposed to just having it and saying it's a good picture and other people like marvel at it. It's like you're giving a gift to somebody. And the kids, their college life, most of them aren't going to the NFL. Their college life is very short. It's it's a big time in their life, and so you're giving them things that they'll have forever.
Absolutely. Well, sounds good. I think we've exhausted all of the questions on here. Howie, I see you in the background. You want to come in? Put your hand up. I'll bring you in. If not, I'll leave you back there.
Come on in, Howie.
All right, here comes Howie. Booyah.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Howie?
Just want to say,
screen light.
Yeah,
that's how we started.
That's my only light right there. I want to go behind it. No, I just want to say that easily. Sorry, Cap. Like my favorite action photographer out there.
Oh, thank you.
I can be scrolling Facebook forever, and as soon as I see one of your pictures, I'm sure you've heard that before. When I see one of yours, I know it's yours before I even look at the name underneath it, because of how sharp and crisp it is. How you always get eyeballs through a face mask and all that stuff. It's not as easy as social media makes it seem like it is sometimes, but yeah, you do outstanding work for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I hear that a lot of people say, "Oh, I know that was you before it came." As soon as before I saw the name, I knew that was your picture. So, oh, thank you. Thank you. I guess that helps if somebody's stealing my work somewhere. He's like, "Hey, is that you?"
I think that although you mentioned you didn't have a particular way that you edit each of your photos, but they're edited individually, but that gives you your look. And that's what Howie's talking about when we see those images. And there's other photographers out there, when we see those images, whose stuff it is before you even look at the title. So I totally get that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Howie.
I got another quick question for you, because this is
sure.
This is a personal greedy question, sort of. Have you ever shot with anything other than Canon?
Yeah. You know what? I can't say this for sure, but I think I've out of a lot of people I know, I've tried every system. I spent thousands of dollars at lens rentals just trying other systems. I shot with the Sony A9 several times. I just rented it. I was one of the first people I know to try it out. I shot with Panasonic. I had a GH2. That was the very first camera that I ever had. I shot at games with Panasonic just to try it out. I shot the Nikon. I had the Z6. I played around with that. I even rented a Pentax a couple years ago. What else? Almost every system. I don't think there's any system that I didn't shoot with out of the popular brands. I rented the Sony A7 III. I rented the A7 IV. I've tried a lot of different stuff, because my fascination really with the mirrorless when it first came out was that I like the idea of being able to flip the screen and shoot from low angle.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the biggest deal for me. Like, man, I hate just laying in the ground, and how can I shoot low without having to go through that? And so I was playing around with different stuff just before Canon had put out like a sports mirrorless, so I tried a bunch of different stuff, and it's pretty much all the same. I mean, there's a different aesthetic sort of with different cameras that have a different sort of look to it. Some of them can be adjusted in camera, and some of them is kind of locked in. But I've liked things about almost all of the camera systems that I shot with, including the Panasonic, even the Pentax. So
what did you think about the A9?
So when the A9, when I got the first A9, this is the original A9 that I shot with. I haven't shot with any of the other ones, but the original A9, of course I loved the tracking and the autofocus. At that time, I didn't like the buffer system because it was like buffer forever and it would just be locked. It'd be locked up. And then I thought the images looked flat. They had like a flat sort of look to them, where the background seemed thin and. You know, and it was funny because my friend of mine, I'm not banging on Sony, by the way. I'm not bashing Sony or anything like that. So nobody can be mad at me. But yeah, that was the impression that I got from the Sony A9, that the images had a flatter, more two-dimensional look to it.
Okay.
And I couldn't do anything with it in editing or anything like that. But the camera was fantastic though in terms of autofocus, because at that time Canon didn't have anything on the level of the A9.
I haven't tried the. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. I was just gonna say I haven't tried the A9 yet. I have an A7 III that I had initially bought. My main camera traditionally has been Nikon D5. And then I bought the Sony A7 III primarily just to shoot video with. And the more I shot video with it, I would find myself, you know, catching a couple still frames, and then when I go back and look at the still frames, I'd really have to reevaluate everything, because I'm like, man, these are so crisp, and like every detail I want to be in focus is in focus. Whereas sometimes on my Nikon stuff, it's hit and miss, and I don't know if that's operator error. I don't know if that's me just abusing my lenses, or what it is. But for instance, I have a 300 that once I looked it up, it was one of the earlier generation autofocus ones, I think from the late 80s, early 90s. And when I started reading about it on Ken Rockwell, it apparently was the Nikon lens that caused a bunch of Nikon shooters to switch to Canon. It was very frustrating for everybody, and I bought it used from another newspaper photographer back in like 2004. I still have it, and it's still great for like you know, portrait stuff, and I can get by with some action stuff, but in lower light and anything where I have action coming straight at me, I have missed so many frames that I thought, oh man, some good action coming right at me. But nowadays, it's just, if I shoot with it, I know. It's like, man, I just missed. Instead of thinking, I really got something good, I'm thinking, I just missed a bunch of good shots.
Yeah, you know, so with the A7 III, I actually like that better than the A9. It's not as, of course, as advanced autofocusing and action capture camera as the A9, but I did like the images. I do like the images a little better than the A7 III. Everybody at Temple shoots Sony except me. All of the videographers all shoot Sony. Just about. There are a couple people that shoot Canon, and they all use the A7 III. Just about everybody. So I've seen a lot of work that I like from the A7 III. But in terms of that, the autofocus issues, it could have been a calibration issue. It could have been a lens calibration issue. I'm not sure though, but sometimes that's the culprit.
That lens is such a dinosaur that you can't really get it serviced anywhere. I've tried to send it to Nikon, they won't do anything with it. It's just a couple of places nationally that will want to mess with it, but pretty much they're all like, why don't you just get a new one? So,
what lens is that again?
It's in a case, and it's actually in the back of my trunk.
I mean, what's the
Nikon 300?
It's a Nikon 300 AF.
Okay.
I don't know which version it is, but it's
if your calibration is off, you can have that focus point locked on them, and you'll shoot the whole sequence, and it'll stay locked on them, and you'll think you got it, and then you go in and the images are soft. But that's like a calibration issue. I had to deal with the calibration stuff for a while, and so I got it right. And now I just would send it to Canon to get them to do it, but that's only going to last me so long because some of the cameras I use, they're not going to be servicing them anymore. So I got to find somebody that knows how to do it well. I've done it myself a few times, and I got it right, and then I've jacked up a couple of times, and I messed it up, and then it was even worse, and then I had to put it back to where it was. So, Yeah, that micro focus adjustment is a drag. That's the one great thing about mirrorless is that you don't have to worry about that with mirrorless at all. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we are coming up on 51 minutes, so we don't want to go too much longer. I'm just looking at the comments here, see if there's any last ones, and I don't see any. Just want to acknowledge the viewers on YouTube and on Facebook. Appreciate it. Again, we've got the QR code in the upper corner of this screen. You can go ahead and scan that if you want to become a member of RISEworkshops private Facebook group. We'd love to have you. You just have to be a working photographer, preferably in the volume industry, have a photography website, and agree to the rules. And we'll go ahead and get you in. On our comments here, I'd like to thank Jeff, Chris, Felicia, of course, Howie was in there. Jeff, Chris was in there. OC was in there. Who else we got? Steve Peterson out of San Diego. Felicia out of New Jersey. OC again. Who else we got in here? Angie Palmer, appreciate it. Stephanie Ball Funk, appreciate all of you guys participating. Brian, of course, the man. Jeff, Chris. Who else we got in here? I think we got everybody. So we appreciate all of you joining in on these lives, and stay tuned because we've got more to come. Zamani, I appreciate you. I thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it a lot. It was fun.
Absolutely.
I wanted more questions.
I know. I'm surprised because if I was on the other end, I'd have been asking. I tried to ask things I figured most people would want to know about. So we don't want to keep it too long. We're at 53 minutes.
Right.
Howard, you got any last words before we close it out?
I don't know. I was just thinking if he wants more questions, I could probably hit him up with a few.
Sure.
Not right now, though. I'm drawing a blank now, but I'll
just type them in the comments.
Most of mine, I typed them in earlier, but
I'm always accessible to everybody on Facebook and all over and Instagram and whatever. I get about probably 10 or 12 inboxes a day from photographers with photography questions, mostly sports photography. So, and I'm always open. I enjoy that a lot.
Do you try? I know you mentioned this earlier, and I can't exactly remember. I know you were talking about the budget, and not being able to go over the budget too much. But how many road games for Temple do you go to? Football?
Football, I do all the road games. So
All
that's like 6 or 7. So those are like my vacations because it's great because I get there. So I get there. They go down the day before, usually the night before or the day before.
Yep.
So get on the plane, they feed you. You got cheesesteaks and whatever you want to eat on there. Get on there, fly down, and then I got my own hotel room. I go to the hotel room, I chill, I hang out with the players or some of the staff, that kind of thing. And I don't have anything to do until the next day. Then we go shoot the game, get up, go to the stadium, shoot the game, get back on the plane, come back home to Philly. So that's like my vacation. They always got the nicest hotels and everything like that. So it's a lot of fun for me. That's the best times I've had in the last 10 years have been I'm traveling with Temple football and everything like that, and just at Temple in general. And
I used to do newspaper work, and in 2007 I covered all of Marshall's stuff. The only game that I missed the only games that I missed is when I had weddings that I had already had scheduled, and they either hired a stringer for it on the road or had one of the other staffers do it on a home game. But got to travel to a bunch of different places that year. Only thing I was thinking, I saw Sean's comment there. If you're ever down in Florida, I'd love to try to make it over to a game you're shooting.
Okay, yeah. I'm usually in Florida at least once a month. I mean, once a year because we play UCF, we play what's the other Florida team? USF, and sometimes we'll have bowls in Florida and stuff like that. So
I'm gonna have to check the schedule and see if you guys are at UCF this year. That would be awesome because
my first NFL game was the Bucks and the Raiders at the Bucs Stadium. So that was a lot of it back in 2016. That was my first one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Howie and Zamani, I'm gonna put you guys in the back green room. I'm gonna close this thing out, so don't hang up. Okay. I'll catch you guys in a minute.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
All right, everyone. There it is. RISEworkshops with another great live interview with somebody that's in the industry. It's very rare that you get the opportunity to get a one-on-one with someone in the industry that's working and they take that time out to spend with you. But we appreciate Zamani Feelings tonight and all the other guests that we've had on and will have on in the future that join us here with Rise Workshops. This is where you come for your photography education. This is where you come to get your questions answered. We appreciate you on YouTube and on Facebook. We appreciate you joining us live. And if you have other comments, if you're watching the replay on this, go ahead and type in your comments and we'll try to review those and make sure we get the answers for you there or lead you in the right direction. RISEworkshops.com, July 15th to the 17th in Orlando. I'm going to close this out with Zamani's reel again, and then we'll go ahead and hit up our reel and we'll be out of here. Thank you so much.
Feelings. I'm a professional photographer and educator.
Back.
We back.
How are you ready for some composites?
I know you is.
Cap, you ready to teach them about some action?
It's time to parlay again.
You know I'm ready. All green screen on this side, hustling.
Stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready, huh?
Rise and grind, rise and grind. This July, it's that time. So get your tickets now and get in line. And we gon' show you how to rise one more time. Yeah.